All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty radical way of thinking about photography. And look, this isn't about capturing technically better images. No, it's about a discipline of conduct, of restraint, of just being present. It's a philosophy where the photograph itself, well, it's almost an afterthought. So the source material for this kicks off with this really powerful idea. Seriously, think about it for a second. We don't just take pictures, do we? We frame the world. We possess a scene. We extract light and meaning. It's kind of aggressive when you break it down. And even when we're trying to be respectful, we still can't help but insist on expressing that respect, making sure our presence is felt.
And right there, that's the pivot. This is the central question that just flips the whole thing on its head. Instead of stamping your presence all over a place, what if the goal was the exact opposite? What if it was to become so quiet, so negligible, that you basically just vanish? So a refusal to capture. Right away, you can see this philosophy doesn't start with doing something. It starts with, well, not doing something. It begins with a series of really profound refusals. It's all about letting go long before you even touch the camera. Refusing to show up with a pre-made image in your head, and refusing to treat the landscape like it's just some stage for your art.
Yeah, this slide lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? It's a real contrast between two totally different mindsets. On one side, you've got the, kind of aggressive language we usually use for photography: framing, possessing, improving, extracting. But then on the other side, you see a completely different vocabulary: refusing, withholding, waiting, and finally, disappearing. It's a massive shift, right? It's moving from imposing your will on a scene to waiting for permission.
All right, on to our next section, the walk in into silence. So you might be wondering, how does this whole thing actually start? Well, it begins way before you get to wherever you're going. It starts with a ritual called the walk-in. And no, this isn't just about hiking from your car to a pretty view. It's a very deliberate process of slowing everything down and shedding all the noise from our busy modern lives. Yeah, the source material calls the walk-in a perceptual shedding. I love that phrase. What it means is you are consciously, actively leaving behind all that urgency, all those expectations you have, and that constant need to label everything you see. The goal is to arrive, empty, to be ready to receive whatever is there instead of just showing up to take something. So as you walk, you can feel the structure of your normal life just start to fall apart. The further you get, the more the momentum of your day just dissolves. Roads disappear, your phone goes quiet, and that constant voice in your head, that internal chatter that's always naming things, oh, that's a tree, that's a rock, there's the path, it all just starts to fade. You're literally unlearning how to be in a hurry. And all of this leads to one single objective: to become negligible. To become so small, so quiet, that you're no longer a disturbance. The idea is, you wait. You just wait until the land itself stops registering you as anything important. You wait until the birds go back to their business, until the wind just flows around you like you're not even there. Which brings us to our next section, waiting for equilibrium. And this is really the absolute core of the whole practice, waiting. But here's the thing, the waiting we're talking about isn't passive. It's not about being bored. The waiting is the work. It's a kind of active patience where you're allowing a balance and equilibrium to form between you and the landscape. And this practice works best in what the philosophy calls thin places. Now, don't think of some huge, dramatic, epic landscape. That's not it at all. Thin places are usually marginal, kind of in-between spaces. Like coasts or uplands or bogs, places where things feel a little less stable, and that boundary between you and the world feels, a little thinner, a little more permeable. And I think these images give you a really good sense of what that feels like. Thin places, by their very nature, frustrate our human need to be in control. The fog hides things. The scale is all wrong and ambiguous. Your mind just can't easily structure or dominate the scene, and trying to do that becomes absolutely exhausting. So what happens? Eventually, you just let go. And letting go leads you to this central discipline, non-interference. Now, it's really important to get this right. This is not about being indifferent or not caring. No way. It's a very precise, very focused act of recognizing that the landscape really doesn't need you. It doesn't need your interpretation. It doesn't need your drama. It's about waiting for that one tiny window of opportunity where taking an action is no longer an interruption. So out of this whole philosophy, a very specific aesthetic kind of naturally emerges. For instance, achromatic, black and white, is preferred. Why? Because it strips away that immediate emotional punch of color. It forces you to have a slower reading of just tone and form. The compositions are super minimal. Only what absolutely cannot be removed is left. They use long exposures, which gather the persistence of time instead of just freezing one tiny moment. And forget about poetic titles. That would just be imposing another story. A simple grid reference is all you get.
Okay, next section, the residue of stillness. So, after all this, what even is the photograph? In this way of thinking, it's definitely not an achievement. It's described as something else entirely. It's just what's left behind after the real work, the waiting, is already finished.
And this quote is so important for understanding the next step, which is, honestly, truly radical. Think about it. Normally, in photography, we take dozens, maybe hundreds of shots of the same thing, right? We work the scene. But in this discipline, all that repetition is seen as a kind of anxiety, a frantic grasping, a desire to possess the moment. And that leads us to this incredibly powerful rule. Just one single exposure. That's it. The shutter is only pressed when that state of equilibrium has finally been reached, when holding back any more would actually be avoidance, not restraint. It's not done out of some flash of inspiration. It's done as a quiet duty.
So this completely redefines what the final image even is. It's not a trophy to hang on your wall, it's residue. I love that. Think of it like frost on the grass in the morning. It's just the modest physical evidence that certain quiet conditions were met for a little while. The real work, the important part, that already happened.
All right, our final section, leaving without a trace. Because the practice doesn't just end when you press the shutter button. Oh no. The departure is every bit as deliberate, every bit as important as the arrival. It's all about leaving cleanly and making sure the place is completely unchanged by you ever having been there. And this is such a key insight. This whole discipline prioritizes the relationship with the place over the result. So a day when you don't make a photograph is not a failure. Not at all. It's actually considered to be an accurate reflection of the conditions on that day. And learning to accept that is a huge part of the work.
Departure is also a psychological thing, too. You don't just walk away and start thinking about the great shot you got. You don't accumulate images or build up this story of success in your head. The goal is actually to leave with less than you arrived with. Fewer assumptions, fewer intentions, and definitely fewer claims on the place you just visited.
And that brings us right to the end, to the final, really provocative question that this whole philosophy leaves us with. In a world like ours, a world that is obsessed with self-expression and making your mark, it asks us to stop and consider something pretty wild. Whether the greater art, the higher skill, might not be expression at all, but the ability to quietly and completely disappear.